So a few years back, I found myself at a career change and decided to come full circle as a handyman, stemming from the roots as a cabinet maker in my younger days. I found out that the cubicle life in IT was not for me, so I branded myself as a handyman. But what I really was a family man in a minivan. Well, the minivan didn't bother my machismo very much, but it did become a nuisance when I would have to shuffle and work around my tools in order to get to my materials for any particular job. Also, my family was in need of a camping trailer versus tent camping in the wind and the rain. So I will break down very briefly the steps that I took to make a unique trailer that served two purposes. I hope that this video can be useful to someone who finds himself with a similar dual-purpose need. My first step was to find a trailer, so I found somebody with a used trailer on Craigslist that was heavy-duty enough to support the weight that I needed. By the time I'm done, the trailer will weigh about 1,600 pounds, but it was important to me to keep that weight down as much as possible, so the next step was to remove the lumber from the base of the trailer that could possibly rot out. So I replaced it with steel studs that would lighten the trailer by about 150 pounds. Soon after, I siliconed the studs together in between, laid them down with duct tape, and I covered them with a PVC framed base. Part of the purpose was to allow for a bottom box that would be protected from the elements and allow space for plywood, sheet goods, drywall, and also camping accessories. To secure the base to the frame, I used self-tapping exterior screws, and I really wanted this to be completely waterproof to save the materials from the elements. So I covered the plywood for the base storage with FRP board by gluing it with contact cement, just as you would with Formica on a countertop. At this time, for the purpose of future measurements that I really wasn't certain of, I decided that it would be a good time to use steel angles and secure a base for a tongue box. This could be used for batteries, wiring, or other trailer accessories, of course. At this time, it was time to go ahead and finish the plywood box and secure it to the frame. After that, I purchased steel round tubing from a local steel supply. I wouldn't recommend getting this from any local box store because it would be about 4 times as much. But I created these notches to allow for these steel tubes to hold the weight of a taller box on top. I wanted this to be at least 6 feet across, both for the purpose of sleeping, at least add for family members a short way, or to simply allow for more tools and materials. I secured these steel tubes by using galvanized carriage bolts that would fit through the existing frame of the trailer. Then, looking forward, I decided to put some Romex wire up around the top of the inside of the storage box just in case I ever wanted to hook up full power to a campsite. At this time, I thought it was really important to insulate the bottom, as I would eventually do to the rest of the trailer. So I used a 1-inch styrofoam insulation to match the width or height of the steel tubing. Now it was time to go ahead and make the floor, in which I actually used some subflooring for the bottom, and I also used truck liner to spray and cover the bottom to protect it from moisture. Then it came to making the frame for the box of the trailer, which cabinet experience was very helpful for me. I used a Craig jig, which allows you to attach the stile and rails of your frame at an angle through the center of the lumber on the back side or the front side, allowing you to place the framing any way you wish. Then I insulated the frame, where I would eventually skin with 1/4-inch plywood, and also with the intention of routing out the doors for when the slab would be finished. When I got this far, I changed my mind or my design a little bit, considering the wind resistance going down the highway. So I decided to add an extra storage unit over the tongue box that would mostly be used in camping storage, and of course help with the wind resistance going down the highway. Not being an engineer and being able to calculate the math for these angles ahead of time, this was a bit of a challenge for me, but I was able to get the angles right through trial and error. I also framed a box that would allow for a small AC unit if I ever wanted to cut the front out and put one in. Now it was time to complete the framing, the insulation on the doors, and the plywood skins. I did put solid trim around the subfloor and covered it with pellet tape to avoid any water damage. So I did route around the frame for each of the 5 doors, and then I trimmed each of those edges with solid poplar. At this time, I did some more wiring that I wanted to go through the roof that would allow for lights and other accessories. I did have to experiment with a door and locking system, so I found these great travel trailer locks from Bauer, and I was able to have them rekey each one for a small fee that could allow me to just use one key for all 5 locks. And I did bolster the strength with the framing around where these locks or handles would go. I was able to find and purchase boat portal windows that I cut room for on each side to allow for ventilation. I also needed to work on a system for weatherproofing around these doors, and that's where I eventually settled on a particular type of T-molding that I ordered online. This is a T-molding / weather stripping that wraps around the sheet metal, which I could screw into the outside of the doors. If I could do this project again, then I would put a heavy-duty roof material on the top and not the thin 3/8 plywood that I put on there. It was a little bit flexible, and I'm a little bit concerned about warping in the center, even though it is framed and insulated. I think I'd probably go with something more like a 1/2 inch. I would eventually put an aluminum roof protectant on the top to keep it waterproof and a little bit cooler inside. To put the flashing on all my exposed corners and top edges, this is where I had to have a custom sheet metal shop bend to the correct angles that were needed for this particular trailer. And I did have to miter all my cuts for this flashing and seal it with a good silicone contact adhesive. After the flashing was complete, then I made a door for the bottom sheet good compartment, and I eventually put a gate latch on there that would allow me to padlock the back end. I did, of course, stain the entire unit, and I covered it with a outdoor exterior urethane. I attached 2 gas spring struts or gas hinges for each door, where I had to experiment just a little bit to get the correct weight capacity before I ordered the correct PSI that would open and close the doors at a good functionality. This was a very custom project that took some time, and it cost about $4,500 for the trailer and all the materials. But it has this dual functionality, and I've had numerous amounts of calls when I put up the sign on the back with my phone number. Not only that, it's brought me this extra business, but I have traveled my family many miles. In fact, we went to the northwestern Olympic Peninsula, all the way there and back to Colorado. If I could do it again, I sure would, but it would have been a lot easier if somebody would have presented a video like this to me for something that serves 2 purposes. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps somebody and saves you some time if you decide you're going to build something similar.